Okay, here we go. First painting to talk to you about. So this is a framed painting. It's in my studio right now. It's a rather large painting. Here's what I was looking at when I was making the painting. Um, and you can see that it's a close-up of a rose cropped in really, really tight. So it's right in here. I do not copy my photographs, and I frequently only use a small piece of a photograph like this. Now, in addition to that, I want to tell you that when I made that painting, it was actually started as a demo painting for one of my watercolor classes. I used the great 20th century artist Georgia O'Keeffe as my inspiration. I shared with my class a lot of information about her life, her work, her subjects. One of the things that she's really famous for is making large, oversized painting of flowers. And so this is the O'Keeffe painting that I was kind of channeling. I was letting it inspire me. And here's the painting. You can see the similarities. I started here. I thought about O'Keeffe, and here's the painting. Okay, story number one. I'll tell you some more stories now. Let's have another O'Keeffe story. This is one of the water lilies from my own backyard pond. I took the photo. My source photo. Oh, wait, here's my source photo. I took it a couple of years ago in my backyard. Once again, I wanted to channel Georgia O'Keeffe's memory, her brilliance, her genius. Here's a Georgia O'Keeffe painting, a large lily. This is not a water lily, but it is a couple of lilies. And this time I felt that the colors, the softness of the O'Keeffe painting might work really well with a lily in my own backyard pond. And so here's the result. I called it Electric Lily because I think that it really is kind of the yellow in the center is so strong. It looks it looks kind of electrified. And this one also is, you can see it's framed at 20 by 24. The painting itself is about 15 inches square. It's a really, it's a really big water lily. Excuse me. It's a really big water lily, as Georgia O'Keeffe would have painted. Okay, now I want to talk about another great American artist and who inspired this painting. And in this case, it's the artist Thomas Moran. Thomas Moran, he might not be as much of a household word as Georgia O'Keeffe, so to speak. He was one of the Hudson River School artists. The Hudson River School was not a school where people went to learn how to paint. It was a movement um, of artists, like-minded artists back in the 1800s who were traveling throughout the United States and in some cases overseas. And then they would come back and make very grand paintings of vistas like this one, which you can see is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Moran actually went out to the Yellowstone area. Yellowstone was not yet a national park. He went out to the Yellowstone area and he trekked around for a couple of years. And while he trekked, he made a lot of watercolors and drawings of the scenery. Then he went home and he made this oil painting, which is 12 feet across. It's humongous. I've never actually seen this painting, but I've seen it online. And here's the interesting thing, everybody. This painting was exhibited in the United States Congress, and it was instrumental in helping Congress to make Yellowstone the very first national park, which happened in 1872. I think that is such an amazing thing. that an artist had that kind of influence on our country to help start the very first national park. Okay, so that all being said, I saw this painting online and I looked at this and I thought to myself, oh, I've been there. I've seen that exact same place. Do you see the waterfall here in Moran's painting? Here it is. I was right there looking at it. So here's a photo that I took when I was visiting Yellowstone, um, enjoying our national park, of course. Here's another photo from about the same location, looking through this very, very deep gorge in the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And so here's my painting. I did not have the waterfall in my painting, but I did have, if you look right here, do you see this marvelous rock formation right here? You see that? That's what I really loved. Plus, I wanted to have the feeling in my painting of the steep, steep walls going way, way down deep into the canyon. But it all started with Thomas Moran. I just love, love, love being inspired by the great artists who have come before us. Okay, sometimes I can get inspired closer to home. No, I have never been on a safari. No, I have never seen lions in the wild. Yes, I've seen this pair at the North Carolina Zoo a number of times. We have a superb zoo in North Carolina. And a few years ago, we were visiting, and I saw these two lions having a very sweet and loving moment. Oh, it was incredible. So watch what's going to happen here. Here's the guy. Here's the male, sitting in the sun, just, looking very royal as male lions do. All right. He's got something on his mind, though. So he yawned. He's trying to act very nonchalant now. Very cool, right? So he takes a big yawn. And then he stands up and he starts to saunter over towards the female. This is one cool dude here, though. He's taking his time. Eventually, he approaches her. She was basking in the sun on a big rock. He approaches her, again, very cool, comes up behind her, and next thing you know, these two lions they were rubbing heads and they were just in their own little lovey-dovey world. And I just stood there snapping pictures. I could not believe how special this moment was. And then, of course, I had to paint them. Isn't that a great story? See why I love telling stories about my paintings? Just so super. Um, okay, now I'm not going to show you the picture of this lady. Sometimes, unless I'm in a class or with a very, very small group, I like, if it's people, I like to sort of respect their privacy. So I'm not going to show you the actual photo of this lady, but I will tell you, I saw her a few years ago in Newport, Rhode Island, and she was in the brilliant sunshine out in a city square, out in public. So it was perfectly fine for me to take her photograph. We were both out in public, and she was busy vaping. And the way the sun was hitting her, it was lighting up her hair, this giant cloud of brilliant white hair. And then there was a giant cloud of of vapor coming from her e-cigarette. It was an amazing moment, just brilliant and gorgeous. Um, And it was really quite fascinating. Last weekend at the actual studio show here, this painting, more than any other, I probably had 50 paintings that people could look at. This was the number one conversation starter among the people who came to the show. So many questions were asked about this painting. So I wanted to tell you about it. Anyhow, here it is. I call it Exhale. I thought that was a great title for it. Um, anyhow, Lady Vaping. And another lady who, once again, I saw her out in public. This was down in the Virgin Islands, and we were out at a jazz concert. And I saw her. I thought she was extremely beautiful. I took a number of photographs of her, and then I made the painting once I returned home to my studio. And I saw this gal. The story behind this one is that I saw this gal right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Um, Downtown, it was some kind of a festival or something, and I took her picture. And you can see there's a lot going on in this picture. She's got two friends with her; they're all hooping, and there's a band, and there's all this stuff going on. All I was interested in was this girl in the middle. I loved her position. I loved her little bony shoulders. I loved the shapes in her hair and the shapes in the shadows being cast on her back. That's what I was most interested in. And so I decided to take everything else out and make the painting. Once I started making the painting, I decided that I needed to transport her from Greensboro, North Carolina to the Virgin Islands. So I gave her a totally different background. She could be anywhere. It's not necessarily the Virgin Islands, but I do love the Virgin Islands. Um, so here she is at the beach somewhere with her hula hoop. Honestly, I don't know if it's actually possible to do what she's doing. Can you actually have two hula hoops going at the same time? I don't have a clue, but I just thought it made for a more interesting story. And remember, a lot of what I'm doing when I'm painting is making up stories from here to here. I'm making up a story and having fun with that story and trying to communicate that with the people who are looking at the painting. Okay, this one started with a visit to a friend's house last year, and we were wandering around the house. She was showing me a couple of things, and we passed by a room with the door open, and I saw this beautiful shaft of light falling from the window outside over the pillow and over the bed. With her permission, I took several photographs. A bedroom's a very private place, and I wouldn't take a picture of somebody else's bedroom without permission. So I did. I got the permission and I did. And I really, really wanted to paint that beautiful shaft of light and to create a feeling of comfort. I want to point something out to you. Do you see out the window? It's very, very green. The photograph was taken in the month of September, and everything outside the window was still very, very green. When I made the painting, I turned everything out the window very, very cool. I made it very, very snowy. I wanted the painting to express, here's the story, the warmth and the security and the comfort of this lovely indoor place on a cold, chilly day outside. Curl up with a book and just feel safe. That's what I wanted to say in my story. Here's something interesting. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Something I've been doing lately. I have an all brand new workshop that I've been teaching, and I call it Bridging Abstraction and Realism. And what I do in this workshop is I start with one photograph. Here's the photo in the middle. And then I translate that photograph in two very different directions. So if you look from the photo to the left, you see realism. to the right, abstraction. And even the abstraction got its start by looking at the photograph. Here's the photo again. Here's a closer look at the realistic interpretation and the abstracted interpretation. This might seem really confusing. I hope it's not too terribly confusing. Um, in the workshop that I teach, of course, I explain a whole lot about it. So the mysteries are revealed, if you will. And here's another example. Okay, you can look at the picture in the middle, which is a place in New Mexico. Realism to the left, abstraction to the right. Here's a closer up look of the photo. Here's the realistic painting. Not the same. It's not a copy of the photo. You can see it's different. I don't copy my photos, even when they're realistic. And here's the abstraction. Again, started by looking at that photo. Here's another one. This time the photo's at the top. I went to Iceland this summer in early July. Here's the photo of a very iconic place in Iceland. Here's realism beneath it, and then abstraction. Again, closer up look. One, two, three. And while we're on the subject of Iceland, this is another iconic place in Iceland. There's this small church. Um, Lots of people go there to get married. Lots of people go there to take pictures, as I did. And here's the painting. And I'm going to attempt to pronounce the name of this place for you. Icelandic is a very difficult language for Americans to understand or speak, but my best effort now is that this church is called Búðakirkja, just so you know. Um, Sometimes my paintings are more about light and shadow than they are about the physical objects. So this painting is really about this gorgeous cast shadow, which I saw right here. I embellished it. You can see I embellished it. I made the shadow bigger, bolder, more beautiful. Here's the painting. It's a large painting. This was up in Alaska, by the way. This place was up in Alaska. This one was right outside my back door on my deck. So once again, I was interested in the shadow. I had a pot of African violets, which just went bonkers blooming. Um, and I took it out onto the back deck and just stuck it on the ground and took a lot of photographs it was late afternoon light. So the shadows were very long and very dramatic. And so once again, this painting is more about the shadow. That's almost more important to me than the actual, as beautiful as the flowers are, the shadow is almost more important to me than the flowers themselves. Um, this is a marvelous big old historic lighthouse on the very eastern tip of Long Island in New York. Trying to think of the name. Montauk. Um, I think that's the name of yeah, Montauk Lighthouse. And so here's what I want to talk to you about in terms of this painting of Montauk Lighthouse. Here's the lighthouse. And you can tour the lighthouse. You can go all the way up to the top of the tower, which we did. It was really fun. Um, but, I took this picture of the lighthouse and the other buildings, and I thought all this green, I mean, this green grass, it was certainly beautiful and very lush and well tended and, not a lot of weeds. It was a nice big lawn. But I thought it was kind of boring, to tell you the truth, all that green stuff. Then we kind of hiked down a path towards the water, and we discovered all these big giant rocks and some beautiful dune grasses. But from down at the water line down here, you couldn't see much of the lighthouse. And so I decided to kind of invent my own view. I wanted in my painting to be able to see the lighthouse and the buildings, as well as the rocks, as well as the dune grasses. And so because I can do it, I made the painting this way. I, or any artist, I'm not saying I'm the only one, we artists can do this. We can take what we want from multiple photographs and we can put them together. It takes some it takes some work to weave these different things together to make an image that holds together and that makes sense. But there you have it. Honestly, unless you were, I don't know, maybe a drone could fly somewhere around the lighthouse and see something like this, but we human beings stuck on the ground, there is no place to really be able to stand and see this. So, yeah, that makes it kind of fun to make a painting like that. Now, speaking of drones, several people last weekend at the show asked me if this painting was made from a drone photograph. And I got to tell you, I was in Spain in 1999, that long ago, when I took the photo that inspired this painting in a place called Ronda in Spain, looking down from a really, really, really high bridge into a valley, and drones had not been invented at that point. So that's how this painting got started. You can see it's a large painting. This is the largest painting that was in the show last weekend. 22 by 30 is a pretty large size for a watercolor. And so I just wanted to share with you the size and the fact that no, it did not get started with a drone. Now, here, of course, we're looking down. Here, we're looking up. I saw these four guys on top of a roof in a local park near my house. They were putting a new roof on the local tennis center, and I took their photograph. I thought they were so interesting up there on the roof. They had no clue I was taking their photograph. They were busy at work. This painting was the first painting I made using my source photos of these guys, and I probably took 10 or 15 photos of them. This is the second version. You can see these three guys right here. One, two, three. Here they are again. One, two, three. But I moved the fourth guy, put him on a ladder, and had him breaking across the edge of the roof. And then, of course, I put in some of the wall of the building. Version number one, version number two. Version number two has been a really great painting for me in the last couple of years. It was essential in earning for me my signature designation from the American Watercolor Society, a really huge milestone for any watercolor painter to get that signature award. So that was the first thing that it did for me. And then this year, it won the gold medal in a very significant national exhibition of American watercolors up in New York State. So this has been a very important painting for me. It was not on display last weekend because it was on its way back from the show in New York. So I didn't have it. So it was not on display, but this one was. So here it is. So, there were some conversations about this one too. Do you get the joke about the title? I hope you get the joke. Any people who are oh, Star Wars lovers from way back when, the joke. I hope you get the joke. Luke Skywalker. I just had to name it Luke Skywalker. I just had to do that. Okay, I'm almost ready to start painting. I'm almost done talking to you, telling you stories. Okay, so this painting got its start at a vineyard. We have lots of lovely vineyards in North Carolina. And so I was at a vineyard. I took a whole bunch of photographs of grapes on the vine. And so here's the painting. And what I did when I made this painting was I took about three different photographs. I didn't show you all of them. Here's just one. But I took, like maybe this bunch of grapes from this photo and this leaf from another photo. And I just cobbled it all together and made one new image of grapes on the vine. And for anybody who was here last year, right about this time, I had a studio show and then I had a Zoom event just like tonight. And I did some painting on screen, just like I'm about to do in a couple of minutes. And this is the painting I was working on last year. You might even remember it. Here's the source photo that I was using. And here's the finished painting. And so this part of this painting actually happened last year, right here. Um, and I think that's a good way to end the story.